Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the MHP Show podcast. I'm your host, Derek Vickers, and I am the CEO of Victory Real Estate Group. And, obviously in the show, we're going to talk about anything and everything that's associated with mobile home parks, underwriting, deals. We're going to talk about industry news, markets, anything and everything about mobile home parks, the good, the bad, the ugly, the crazy stuff that happens, which is the best part of the business that actually keeps it entertaining. And it's a lot of fun. So today we're actually going to talk about some of the pros and cons of investing in this asset class. Now, look, I'm an MHP junkie. I love this asset class. There's other people that are storage junkies, that are, multifamily junkies, and there's pros and cons to each asset class for sure. There's no question about that. I don't think there's one asset class that is better than another, but they do have their pros and cons. There's no question about that. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that I think are pros and some of the things that I think are cons about mobile home parks. But first, if you would just subscribe to the show, all you got to do is hit subscribe. It helps me out, lets me know that you guys are enjoying the content that I'm putting out here. And also leave a comment. I would love to know if you like or dislike it, or you can reach out to me. I'm 100% not hard to find. I'm on every single social media platform, posting all the time. So I'd love to hear your feedback. If there's anything you'd like me to talk about, I would absolutely be open to hearing your feedback. So here we go, and getting into it. And look, I just listed out some of the pros and cons, and we're just going to dive into them here and have a lot of fun with it. So, now I'm going to start with some of the advantages and pros of investing in this asset class and why you would want to do it anyways. Well, mobile home parks are historically very recession resistant, all right? Because even in a downturn of an economy, we're still the cheapest place in town. The cheapest place and the nicest place. Look, there may be some crappy apartments or something in town that are cheaper. Maybe, probably not. But if they are, they're probably just a straight slum that no one wants to live in. So we're the cheapest place in town. And typically, even if a recession hits, there's sort of a transfer of where people are staying if it gets bad enough. So the people that were in the $5,000 a month stuff go down to the $2,500 a month or the $3,000 a month stuff. And the people that were in the $2,000 a month go down to the $1,000 a month stuff. And so the people that were in the $1,000 a month come down and they want to move into a mobile home and pay lot rent if there's anything available. Because a lot of times in mobile home parks, there's nothing available. And everyone owns their own home. And so unless they stop paying rent or they start burning down homes or something freaking crazy in the park, they're going to be in there. And look, you may have, for various reasons, we have some vacancies that come up, but they're filled quickly. And during a recession, people don't want to lose their homes. So paying their rent and keeping a roof over their head is the first thing that they're going to do. So these things are recession resistant, 100%. And again, I mean, us being the cheapest place in town and people owning their own homes, which are some other advantages that I'll get into here. But if there's any asset that I want to own during a recession, it is a mobile home park. Because my collections, look, maybe people getting stuck into some difficult financial hardship and they may pay rent a little later. Let's just say you're 100% collected on, the 5th of the following month versus the 15th. Still fine. It's not perfect. It's not great. You want everybody to pay as early as possible, but that's still pretty good. And look, you could probably say the same for other asset classes, but I would say for this one, just for that fact, this is a recession-resistant asset, and I love that. So the other thing, the pros of it, is that I know we've talked about this before, and that P word, that passive word. Now, I would say that mobile home parks 100% are a more passive investment when everything's tenant-owned homes, when all the people own their own houses, it's relatively passive. Now, look, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with human beings. So, look, there's still stuff for sure. Don't get me wrong. But generally, when you're talking about these assets, you don't have to fix anything. So if you've got all tenant-owned homes, your infrastructure hasn't blown up, you're pretty good and they don't require a lot of work. The first park that we bought, yes, it was a lot of work. We've got, half the park was on septic and the other half was on city water and sewer. But this park, I mean, it literally requires like not that many people to be. Our regional manager checks up on it here and there, but it's pretty quiet for the most part. And so generally, these things are passive when you get them to a certain point, which I love. But again, you're still dealing with human beings. So, okay, so another advantage of this asset class is that you get to make a positive effect on affordable housing. We are all aware of the affordable housing crisis in America. And there's no affordable housing anymore anywhere. Like, look, it's there. And in some parts of the US, it's being developed. And I've heard of people actually taking, some old hotels and turning them into affordable housing, but that's a very small living space. So you get to make a positive effect on that. There have been countless properties and two particular large MSAs that we purchased in that the highest and best use is not a mobile home park. Across the street from one of our properties, they built this fantastic, nice Class A office. Wouldn't touch office right now. But right across the street, they have our mobile home park. And look, I know the city does not want it there. They would rather someone come in and buy and build something like they built across the street. And they may say that they want to help affordable housing. They may say, in the headlines and in their press conferences that oh my gosh, they're concerned about affordable housing. They're so concerned about it. But behind the scenes, they don't want it. They may want it, but they make it very difficult for you to stay. But as a park owner, you get a chance to preserve affordable housing for people in America. And although there's not that much of it, but you can make a difference in the lives of a bunch of families. We've got veterans and families and multiple generations in our parks. And we have made a positive impact in giving them a clean, safe place to live. So I think that's the great thing about our industry. It's really a win-win-win. We get to positively affect affordable housing, and everyone else gets helped in the process as well. So that's one. Now, I touched on this a little bit earlier. Another one is the turnover rate. So in a market where you can turn over your park-owned homes, you get rid of all your park-owned homes, or you bought the park with all tenant-owned homes, the turnover rate is going to be much, much, much lower than any other asset class. Because in multifamily apartments, you've got to have a management team there on site doing lease up on a monthly basis, depending on how large the property is. You could have long-term tenants in there, but still, and I mean, if you have an older property, there's going to be tons of expenses and tons of infrastructure and tons of issues when you're going in there. The tenants are tearing the hell out of the place. You've got to go turn that unit every time someone moves out. And that turning process, some of the parks that we've bought in Tampa, they come with these little stupid efficiency apartments. Look, they're fine. But, typically when someone moves out, we've got to turn it. And sometimes we have to procure the contractor because our maintenance guy can't do it. And then we got to get on their schedule. So sometimes it could take even 2, 3, 4 weeks to get that done because we don't typically have a crew like an apartment complex may to where they can go in and turn these units as quickly as possible. But still, that's going to put some lag time as far as you getting your property filled up. So multifamily apartments, I don't think you're going to be 100% full the entire time. And I'm sure there are properties that are. And I'm not hating on multifamily because I'll probably buy multifamily at some point. But it's not the turnover rate is not like a mobile home park. So say if we've got, 300 lots in an MSA, they're all tenant-owned homes. For whatever reason, we may lose, a couple residents a year here and there, but we've already got a waiting list of people when a house becomes available that, someone's going to come in and buy that house quickly. And that's even in a rare instance when someone leaves, or some people even sell their own house. So we don't lose any time in rent because they have to pay rent. They're on the lease. And so the turnover rate, as I was mentioning, is that's one of the reasons I 100% love this asset class. So next, another benefit to investing in this asset class. I've talked a little bit about this before, but your barrier to entry, this is one of the reasons I got into this business, and this was an advantage because the barrier to entry to get in was a lot lower if you want to get scale. So if you're looking to buy a house or a duplex and rent out, which there's people that do well at that, but in my opinion, I would rather have more people paying rent versus one, because if one person moves out of your duplex, then you're 50% vacant. If one person moves out of your 10 or 20 lot mobile home park, and you can buy that small, we did in the beginning, you're not going to be hurt as bad. Because let's just say you have a house that you're renting for $2,500 a month or whatever. Someone moves out, you're 100% vacant at that point. You're 100% vacant. And I just don't like that. So the opportunity for you to get into scale, like I'm looking at a park right now, it's 51 lots. It's for, I think the asking price on it was 1.2 million. Look, it's not in it's decently outside of a okay MSA. It's not in the middle of nowhere. But that's 50 units. So you may pay 100,000 in a crappy market for multifamily or something. I'm not positive what it would be. So if you did the math on that, that's $5 million. So that's it's a big difference in the deal. And so I love that you can get into a property with more scale for much less than you can in most other asset classes. So that is a fantastic benefit, I think, especially if you're new to investing, you haven't bought a deal yet, you want to get a little bit of scale. This is an asset class where you can do that. So those are some of the advantages. One other advantage I wanted to touch on here really quick is the tax benefits. Now, the tax benefits of these things are fantastic because we can still get bonus depreciation up to 80% this year. So what we'll do is a cost segregation study. You can look that up and understand what that is. I'm not an expert on it. I'm not an accountant or anything like that. But I can essentially take the depreciation that I would have gotten over time and move that up into year one and take most of it in the initial year. Therefore, I have a big loss that I get on my K1 from that property, which comes directly off the top of my income, which is fantastic. And you can do this in other real estate classes, asset classes as well. But, I think just generally investing in commercial real estate, the tax benefits are just fantastic. Okay, disadvantages of mobile home park investing. And now look, I'm going to be the one to tell you these disadvantages. I know people that are out here spitting that it's all sunshine and rainbows, but it definitely ain't. Like it's not. So the disadvantages of mobile home park investing are it's capital intensive. And what do I mean by that is that, look, you need some money, dude. Like if you've got $1 million deal and, the bank's going to give you 30% down, or the bank's going to give you 70 LTV on that, you got to put 30% down. It's 300 grand. That is not the only money that you're going to need for this property. Now, look, if it's a class A and everything's paved and they got sidewalks, but you ain't paying $1 million for that. So you're probably going to have some infrastructure issues, even if it's city water and city sewer. You may have to pave the roads. You may have to do all these other little things, and it can get capital intensive quickly. If you have to rehab some homes, if you're not in the market for handyman special homes, you may have to rehab some homes. it can get capital intensive very, 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 very quickly if you don't know what you're doing. Tree work. You know how much tree work costs? Before I got into this business, I didn't even know. But trees are freaking expensive, dude. I'm talking 10, 20, 30, $40,000 depending on how extensive, how big the trees are. And you got to look at that, dude. You got to look at that. So this business can get very, very, very capital intensive. And even like, so let's just say you got private utilities. And this is something that I'm going through currently, working on a mountain of projects that we're going through. And look, some of these were mistakes that we made, but some of them we did everything that we could. We went through the due diligence list. We had someone come inspect the treatment plant, the well, all of that, and everything was fine. And then something breaks, and it's $50,000, $65,000. I think we're going to have to pay on this particular instance. And luckily, look, this property's doing well. It's screaming cash flow, but we ain't going to get some of that for a couple months because we got to pay for this issue. So this business can get very capital intensive fast because these infrastructures were old. I was looking at I was on the call with a guy yesterday, and he was showing me the system where you can kind of look up the demographics and things for properties, find the owners, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, look at one of our parks. And I was actually off on the year. Year developed on this park was 1952. So the infrastructure was placed in here in 1952. So that's 71 years ago. So you cannot sit here and tell me that you're not going to have some infrastructure problems unless it's been replaced. And if you bought from mom and pop, it definitely hadn't been replaced. They've been band-aiding the thing for, 50 years, which is a whole nother topic. Okay. So that's one, capital intensive. And I would tell you, just as a word of advice on that, if you're buying a deal and your first deal, to make yourself feel better, be like, okay, I got 200 grand in the bank. I can buy a deal that's 800K. Well, you're going to need more than that. So just make sure you understand the things that you're going to have to spend money on. You have to understand that, because I've talked to people that have gotten into this business and they've underestimated how capital intensive these deals can be. And they've ended up having to spend a lot more money, come out of pocket a lot more than they would particularly like to. So just be careful with that. And I'd love to help you with that. Okay, so another disadvantage is the property management, the operations, the challenges that you are going to have operationally, because they are very unique, the operational challenges that you'll have. And this goes for many different things, compliance and government regulations. So you probably have to have permits to operate your mobile home park. You need to understand how those work and how to get them and how to stay in compliance with them. Code enforcement. And this kind of will touch on another disadvantage as well, but code enforcement and how to deal with them, because you're going to deal with them at some point. You're going to deal with the local municipality in one way, shape, or form, because you're going to piss someone off. The property manager is going to piss someone off or something, or Johnny hadn't paid his rent in 2 months. You've given him every freaking opportunity in the book. And now you send him a demand letter, or you send him an eviction notice. And now he's going to call code enforcement for the gutter that is barely falling off the thing and that he hadn't told you about in freaking 2 years. And code enforcement's going to come out, and they may, depending on the kind of guy you get, they may find something new or they may not. Look, I'm telling you guys, it's going to happen for sure. And sometimes, and look, this is in any asset class, no matter if you're in affordable housing or Class A. And I've actually heard that Class A, the people are tougher to deal with, and I could see that. But you're going to get unique challenges with people that come into the office, to your property manager, and the property manager is not going to want to know what to do, because these people were irate because, we had a time where a lady comes in the office because a 10-year-old kid was going around flashing people in the park. You just never know what you're going to run into. And this can present challenges. And look, we have great people that live in our parks. And then we have some people that are they're a little tougher to deal with, which is in anything. So you're going to have to figure out how to deal with that. But I think most of the management intensiveness comes from just the other regulations that are on these things, dealing with code enforcement and things like that, and staying in compliance and doing maintenance on the infrastructure, which goes into the capital intensive part that I spoke about earlier. And just the other disadvantage was the regulatory things, as I mentioned, with the permitting, because it can be a mess if you've got private utilities like yesterday. I'm talking to a lady at the health department, and she's like, "Hey, Derek," she sends me this list. "Hey, you need to do this." So I'm talking with our treatment plant operator, and he's handling some of the stuff. And she's like, "You need to log in and give him access to the DMR reports." I'm like, I've never done that. And we've got 3 other treatment plants. I'm like, I've never freaking done this. I didn't even know we had to do this. And so even with all this experience I've had with these regulatory issues, I didn't even know this particular thing. So now I got a call with her today and I got to figure that out. And look, we'll figure it out. But all this stuff is time consuming for you. All this stuff, prevents you from going out and getting a new deal. And what I like to do is I'll handle something like this. I'll type out a process for it and I'll hand it to our property manager so the property manager can handle it the next time. And so, look, I just think in me, when I got into this business, I totally underestimated the regulatory issues that you were going to have. When we bought all these private utilities, I definitely underestimated the regulatory issues that you have. You just think, oh, I have an operator that comes and checks my well 3 or 4 times a week. Oh, I've got an operator that comes and checks the treatment plant 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. And, it's fine. They're going to take care of everything. And yes, they are going to do most of the work for you. But there's still things that you have to know. There's still things that you need to do to stay in compliance and keep these government agencies off your ass. Because once they get on your ass, it is more difficult to get them off. And some of the issues that, these parks were grandfathered in. And so if you have a problem with something, your infrastructure, you a lot of times can't build it back. So again, this sort of wraps into the capital intensive part of it, is like, it just makes it harder for you to operate these things. And all in all, this all comes down to making sure that you do the proper due diligence thoroughly and understanding what you're buying, or you can get killed, dude. You can 100% get killed. And so I think another quick disadvantage is just the reputation of these things. Oh my gosh, it's a trailer park. It's a crappy place. You're a trailer park owner. Oh my God. And look, some of these parks are not some place that you're going to take your parents to and be like, oh my gosh, look, we own this fantastic looking thing. These things are what they are. And you can actually bring up the aesthetics 100%. But, some of them, depending on the stuff that you're buying, they're never going to be the Taj Mahal. They're just not. But that doesn't mean you can't provide a clean, safe, affordable place to live. All right. And look, I just want to give you the truth of this. In any real estate that you buy, yes, the pundits are passive income, and it's great. But there are other things that you need to look at, because there are things that's going to happen. If you're in business, things are going to happen. If you own real estate, if you own mobile home parks, there are going to be things that come up that are unforeseen, so you can't ever get everything. But before you dive into this asset class, I just want you to understand some of the issues that you'll have, some of the things you may not be thinking about when you're coming through and buying your first deal. So look, my name's Derek Vickers. Again, thank you all for listening to the MHP Show podcast. I love doing this and I have a lot of fun. And so please subscribe. You can find me on every social media platform, or you can email me, Derek@victoryrealestategroup.com. Again, that's Derek@victoryrealestategroup.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, reach out to me on social or through my email. And until next time, we'll see you later. Peace.